a question, just some food for thought. Y'all know what's up with me. I like to stir it up a little bit. That's what I'm good at doing because I like to just ask certain questions and, have these train of thoughts where I need to ask questions and put stuff out there that a lot of people are afraid or just turn a blind eye to. But I already know how this works. I already know how social media works, how media works, because me being part of the media, I have a complete and clear understanding of how it works. But you still have to, you know, shine the light on people and put the spotlight on them and the interrogation light as if you're interrogating them about some type of crime that went on. So, my question is, where are all the videos about Vincent Kennedy McMahon? Because he's pretty much being accused of the unthinkable. This dude has tons of accusations against him, but everybody is fixated on, Diddy. Now, I'm going to say this again. I'm not defending Diddy whatsoever, but I'm just saying people need to have the same energy. If you're outraged about these sort of things you don't and you feel like you want justice and you are an advocate for protecting women and getting people like Diddy off the streets, okay, cool, but don't just make it about Diddy, because then it comes across as disingenuous and then you just look fake and you just look like an ambulance chaser and a view whore. One thing about me, I talk about everybody. And just on a side note, and I just got to say this, that dude, Gene Deal, is the most disingenuous, fakest nigga that I've ever seen in my life. Gene Deal is a clown. He ain't no different from Charleston White. This dude supposed to have worked security and was a bodyguard for P. Diddy, but he's sitting up here going on all these outlets, dropping dimes, snitching and telling. But my thing is, you were in law enforcement, dude. So you knew that Diddy was doing all these horrendous things. You supposed to have witnessed them, you heard about them, but you chose to stay silent for years. And then all of a sudden you get on YouTube and just start telling. If you knew all these despicable acts were going on and you did nothing, you didn't try to get this man off the streets and stop him, then you just as part of the blame. You are just as much accomplice and an accessory. See, that's what people really need to say about dudes like Gene Deal. That dude is a complete fraud. And it's just time somebody said it. He's a complete fraud. He a disgruntled employee. He said something that was, that was very interesting when he was talking about what, Diddy should do. He need to do this, he need to do that. And then he said he wanted to monitor him. So like I said before, that showed me that this is about money. Building a platform, you know what I'm saying, and clout chasing. That's pretty much what he's doing. If he was still on the payroll, he wouldn't give a damn about none of this stuff. And people acting like he's just this advocate for doing right. Like I said before, this man witnessed all this stuff, heard about it, and he didn't do nothing about it. And this dude worked in law enforcement. So that should tell you all you need to know about this dude. He has blood on his hands as well. But now all of a sudden he want to act like, yeah, I saw this, I heard about this. But why don't you, tell your brothers in blue? But I just wanted to put that out on the side note. Yeah, Gene Deal is a complete fraud, and somebody need to say it. He just a bigger fraud, or you know what I'm saying, just as big a fraud as Charleston White. Charleston White is walking hypocrisy. So I mean, and Charleston White is a troll and an ambulance chaser and an attention whore. But people feed into it. But I just got to say that. I'm not buying what Gene Deal is telling and trying to sell. Very, he about trying to sell books. So there you have it. But nevertheless, let's get back to Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Vincent Kennedy McMahon has a history of doing questionable things. From how he took over the WWE, which was the WWF at the time in 1982 from his father, and he turned what was considered a respectable uh by corporate standards, a respectable uh sports entertainment company, to bottom feeding, gutter, despicable, racist. You know what I'm saying? Just, there was no limits that Vincent McMahon would go with the WWE. But at the end of the day, it paid off. It went from a $1 million conglomerate to a multi-billion-dollar, enterprise, in which Vince McMahon, I think, sold it for billions of dollars. You know, but you just saw Vincent McMahon's character. He did. I mean, just think from the WWF at the time, to some of the blatantly racist stuff they did, to where they had this. I'm not gonna call it a skit, where it was just basically a promo. You know how whenever they had new wrestlers coming in, or when they was trying to promote the latest pay-per-view, whether it was, I don't know, WrestleMania or whatever, that other stuff, they would have these promos, or they have these segments. And Ted DiBiase, what he did in regards to Tito Santana, it was it was deplorable. It was horrible. And then we all know the infamous Greg the Hammer Valentine rant, where he said all those disgusting and racist and vile things about the Junkyard Dog. And then we remember Vince McMahon saying the N-word to John Cena, and Vince McMahon doing disgusting things, from having 70-plus-year-old ladies lifting up their tops. I mean, this dude just, it was just no, I mean, for real. There was nothing sacred about the WWE. So, does this surprise me that Vince McMahon is being accused of this stuff? Of course not. The proof is in the pudding. You don't remember the stuff with, he used to call himself the one man gang. Then he went to become Hakeem, the African Dream. I mean, like I said before, when you just think of the stuff that you saw with the WWE, how racist and I mean, and disrespectful it was. I mean, I give him credit though. He would disrespect pretty much every race you could think of, every religion. I mean, everything. There was no level that Vince McMahon wouldn't stoop to. But like I said before, it paid off, because he got the lowest of the low. And I think one of the worst things that happened in wrestling is when he bought the WCW. When he bought him out. So you just look at Vincent McMahon's his history. You look at some of the stuff that he let happen on Monday Night Raw to SmackDown. The proof is in the pudding about his character. He had to okay all that stuff. And don't you remember what he did to Bret Hart? So my thing is, all this stuff is popping up with Vince McMahon. But my thing is, why isn't it getting, why isn't it getting the airwaves, and why isn't it getting the publicity and the media attention that Diddy has been getting. And that's my thing. If you have an issue with this, you got to have an issue with it as a whole, not having an issue with who's doing the stuff that you don't like for them to be doing. If you think this type of behavior is inappropriate, disrespectful, degrading to women, degrading to people's ethnic group or whatever they, want to call themselves or identify, you got to have that same energy for everybody. And a lot of times you just don't see it. And this is why I call this stuff out. One thing about me, I'm accurate. So I need to see a whole bunch of Vince McMahon videos, but we know people are not going to touch it because whatever the case may be, black people, or should I say black men, lead the views because of people's interpretation of how they see black people, whether it's in a negative or positive form. People have a curiosity about black people and black man as a whole. So that's why the formula is to constantly keep a black man's name in the media, more so when it's something negative or questionable. But I don't see nobody making no Vince McMahon videos. So, let me block you. But shout out to Ticket TV for staying consistent. He consistent like me. And he have the same smoke for everybody like I do. Keep in mind, Ticket TV put me on, but I want to see other people. But this is how a lot of media, this is how they get down. They don't be doing this stuff because they are appalled or they offended by it. These people, for the most part, real talk, they can care less about Diddy, but then they'll put on this facade and put on this show like they're just upset because they know it leads to views. Because whenever you can demean, or you know what I'm saying, whenever you can demean or disrespect or basically talk about a black man in a negative perspective, people gonna be curious and they're going to tap in and tune in and watch. Works every time. But I'm saying, if you are so appalled, if you don't like this type of behavior, you need to have the same type of smoke for everybody, but we know that you don't. So that's all I'm saying. Where the Vince McMahon videos at? Vince McMahon is under investigation. Vince McMahon has been sued for the same stuff that Diddy's been sued for. Now, is there any videos? No, but Vince McMahon has been accused of improperly behaving around women and mistreating women and harassing women. So, like I said before, if you are appalled, you got to be appalled with just, everybody. So that's all I'm saying. I just want to see the Vince McMahon videos. But we know there's going to be next to no, publicity or pub or media attention in regards to Vince McMahon. They'll do a quick, you know what I'm saying? They'll do a quick walk by. They may bring it up just to cover their tracks and make it seem like, hey, they're not, being biased or racist, but they're not going to have these long segments. And my thing is, once again, where's Stephen A. Smith at? He got something to say about everybody else, so why ain't he talked about Vince McMahon? So just putting that out there. Anyway, it's your boy Town. I'm out.